Hello students, this is Matt. I am Mr. Lou's son, and he is going to be reading you a story this evening. Say hello, Mr. Lou.
Hello, third graders and your teachers. I miss you very much.
Before we get started, he wanted for me to show you his apartment. This is where he sits in his library. He has his books on his bookshelves. This is the rest of his apartment. Here is where Mr. Lou sleeps. And there's Ginger, everyone. That's Mr. Lou's little kitty cat. Look how sweet she is. Here's Mr. Lou's desk where he writes to his family and where he does his homework. Mr. Lou's fireplace and his television. Here's his dining room table that he always has covered with jigsaw puzzle pieces because he likes to do jigsaw puzzles. And this is where Ginger sits while she helps him. All right. Mr. Lou, what story are you going to read for the students today?
Today we have Horton Hatches the Egg by Dr. Seuss. And you all know many Dr. Seuss stories, especially How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And here we go with Horton. Title page. Sighed Maisie, a lazy bird, hatching an egg. I'm tired and I'm bored, and I've kinks in my leg from sitting, just sitting here day after day. It's work. How I hate it. I'd much rather play. I'd take a vacation, fly off for a rest. If I could find someone to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free. Then Horton the elephant passed by her tree. "Hello," said the lazy bird, smiling her best. "You've nothing to do, sir, and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on the egg in my nest?" The elephant laughed. "Why, of all silly things, I haven't feathers and I haven't wings. Me on your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am, and I'm so immense." "Tut, tut, tut," answered Maisie. "I know you're not small, but I'm sure you can do it. No trouble at all. Just sit on it softly. You're gentle and kind. Come, be a good fellow. I know you won't mind." "I can't," said the elephant. "Please, please," begged the bird. I won't be gone long, sir. I give you my word. I'll hurry right back. Why, I'll never be missed." "Very well," said the elephant. "Since you insist, you want a vacation, go fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg and I'll try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful. I mean what I say." "Toodaloo," sang out Maisie, and she fluttered away. The first thing I do," murmured Horton. "Let's see. The first thing I do is to prop up this tree and make it much stronger. That has to be done before I get on it. I must weigh a ton." Then carefully, tenderly, gently he crept up the trunk to the nest where the little egg slept. Then Horton the elephant smiled. Now that's that. And he sat, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. And he sat all that day, and he kept that egg warm, and he sat all that night through a terrible storm. It poured and it lightened, it thundered, it rumbled. This isn't much fun, the poor elephant grumbled. I wish she'd come back, 'cause I'm cold and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget. But Maisie, by this time, was far beyond reach, enjoying the sunshine way off in Palm Beach, and having such fun, such a wonderful rest, decided she'd never go back to that nest. So Horton kept sitting there day after day, and soon it was autumn and the leaves blew away. And then came the winter, the snow and the sleet, and icicles hung from his trunk and his feet. But Horton kept sitting, and he said with a sneeze, I'll stay on this egg, and I won't let it freeze. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. So poor Horton sat there the whole winter through, and then came the springtime, with troubles anew. His friends gathered round, and they shouted with glee, Look! Horton the elephant's up in a tree. They taunted, they teased him, they yelled, How absurd! Old Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird. They laughed and they laughed, then they all ran away. And Horton was lonely. He wanted to play. But he sat on that egg and continued to say, I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. No matter what happens, this egg must be tended. But poor Horton's troubles were far, far from ended, for while Horton sat there, so faithful, so kind, 3 hunters came sneaking up softly behind. He heard the men's footsteps. He turned with a start. 3 rifles were aiming right straight at his heart. Did he run? He did not. Horton stayed on that nest. He held his head high, and he threw out his chest. And he looked at those hunters as much as to say, Shoot if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. But the men didn't shoot, much to Horton's surprise. They dropped their 3 guns, and they stared with wide eyes. Look, they all shouted. Can such a thing be? An elephant sitting on top of a tree. It's strange. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's new. Don't shoot him. Let's catch him. That's just what we'll do. Let's take him alive. Why, he's terribly funny. We'll sell him back home to the circus for money. And the first thing he knew, they had built a big wagon with ropes on the front for the pullers to drag on. They dug up his tree and they put it inside, with Horton so sad that he practically cried. We're off, the men shouted, and off they all went, with Horton unhappy 100%. Then out of the wagon and onto a ship, and out over the ocean, and oh, what a trip. Rolling and tossing and splashed with the spray, and Horton said day after day after day, I meant what I said, and I said what I meant, but oh, am I seasick 100%. Well, after bobbing around for 2 weeks like a cork, they landed at last in the town of New York. All ashore, the men shouted. And down with a lurch went Horton the elephant, still on his perch, tied onto a board that could just barely hold him. Then bump, Horton landed, and then the men sold him. Amen on the men selling him too. Sold to the circus, then week after week they showed him to people for 10 cents a peek. They took him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, to Chicago, Weehawken, and Washington too, to Dayton, Ohio, St. Paul, Minnesota, to Wichita, Kansas, and Drake, North Dakota. And everywhere thousands of folks flocked to see and laugh at the elephant up in the tree. Poor Horton grew sadder the farther they went, but he sat in that hot, noisy tent. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. Then, one day, the circus show happened to reach a town way down south, not too far from Palm Beach. And dawdling along way up in the sky, who, of all people, should chance to fly by? But that old good-for-nothing bird, Runaway Maisie, still on vacation and still just as lazy. And spying the flags and the tents down below, she sang out, "What fun! I'll go to the show." And and she swooped from the clouds through an open tent door. "Good gracious," gasped Maisie. "I've seen you before." Poor Horton looked up with his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, there rang out the noisiest ear-splitting squeaks from the egg that he'd sat on for 51 weeks. A thumping, a bumping, a wild, alive scratching. "My egg!" shouted Horton. "My egg! Why, it's hatching!" "But it's mine!" screamed the bird when she heard the egg crack. The work was all done, now she wanted it back. "It's my egg," she sputtered. "You stole it from me. Get off of my nest and get out of my tree." Poor Horton backed down with a sad, heavy heart. But at that very instant, the egg burst apart, and out of the pieces of red and white shell from the egg that he'd sat on so long and so well, Horton the elephant saw something whiz. It had ears and a tail and a trunk, just like his. And the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" They looked, and they stared with their eyes popping out. Then they cheered, and they cheered, and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything quite like it before. "My goodness! My gracious," they shouted. "My word! It's something brand new. It's an elephant bird." And it should be. It should be. It should be like that. For Horton the elephant sat and he sat. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. And they sent him home happy, 100%. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it, and that was a book I would have read for you in April. So I'm hoping to read a book for you next week, or yes, this week, a book in May. So see you again soon. Bye-bye.